Today's gospel reading ends the Sermon on the Mount, and Jesus ends it with a powerful parable about the wise and foolish builders. But he begins first with a stern warning, a warning for all of us. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. Jesus is emphasizing to us that it's not enough to merely profess our faith in words. We must also live it out in our actions. He illustrates this with the parable of the two builders, the wise man who builds his house on a rock. And when the rains come and the winds blow and the floods rise, and we all know that happens. The rains come, the winds will blow in our lives, and the flood will rise. But the wise man built it on rock, and the house stood firm. But the foolish man builds his house on sand, and when the storms hit, his house collapses with a great crash. This parable speaks directly to the heart of our faith. What are we building our lives upon? Now, I realize I'm preaching a little bit to the choir here. We're all here this beautiful Thursday morning, and it implies that we're attempting to build our lives around the cornerstone of Jesus and the Eucharist. But familiarity can bring a false sense of security. Brothers and sisters, attending Mass daily guarantees us nothing if we stop letting it transform us. If we are not careful, we can be like the foolish man building our lives on the sand of self-deception. Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living," and in that he means that there is wisdom to be found in critical self-examination. In my life in corporate America before I retired, I was somewhat obsessed with different ideas of efficiencies and self-improvement. One of my favorite books was Stephen Covey's The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And the first 6 habits are ones you can kind of come up with on your own. You can think about all the things which are popular, but I was really touched by the 7th habit, and that is sharpen the saw. This habit states that no matter what other fantastic things we may be doing in our lives, we must make time to focus on continual self-improvement and renewal. If we don't, the saw goes dull, and all the progress that we've made goes to waste. If we put this in terms of our faith, it means that we cease to be the tool God has made us to be. One of the ways that we can have to sharpen our saw and to look at our spiritual foundations is through the practice of performing an examination of conscience. This is a time-honored tradition in the church that invites us to regularly, daily, look at our lives honestly, examine our actions and our motives. It's a moment of truth between us and God, where we ask for His light to shine on the areas where we might be deceiving ourselves. For me personally, I take a simple approach. I use the acronym CPR to remember the steps. At a set time every day, maybe it's the first thing in the morning or the last thing before I go to bed, if we were to do this, we would open ourselves up to the Holy Spirit in prayer for guidance. And then we start with C. C for celebrate our success. In that we look back at our day and we think about those times where we feel comfortable that we're living out God's will. Those times when we smiled at somebody else, when we helped them, when we shared God's love. The next one is P, pinpoint. Pinpoint those times in the day when maybe you missed the mark. Maybe you lost your temper. Maybe you were too busy to give of yourself and to help someone who is in need. And then that leads us to R, resolve to do better. Think about those things that have triggered our bad behavior or the practices which allow us to ignore it. These are questions to help us see where we may be deceiving ourselves, where we may be building on sand instead of solid rock. They also open our hearts to God's grace, enabling us to make the necessary changes to align our lives more closely with His will. As we reflect on today's gospel, let us ask ourselves, are we like the builder, grounding our lives on the teaching of Jesus? Are we living the will of the Father? Or are we saying words that are empty and meaningless? Avoiding self-deception is crucial to our spiritual journey. Committing ourselves to regular self-examination and prayer, seeking to align ourselves with God's will. It requires humility and a willingness to see ourselves as we truly are, not as we wish to be. It means being open to God's guidance and correction. When we do this, we build our lives on the rock-solid foundation of Christ's teaching, and we can withstand any storm that comes our way. May we always strive to live in truth and sincerity, and may the Holy Spirit guide us in this journey, helping us to remain steadfast in truth and faith.